Hey guys, what's good? This is the Rat Pack again for the recap of UFC 280. This time, it's almost all of us together. Not yet. We haven't gotten the fun of it. I guess the four of us can't be together for one time, but we try. So this time we're gonna do the recap with Fight Night Network, Viking, myself, the poet, and we're gonna start with the main card, the main event. Man, I don't know what else to say. I want to give it to you guys. Viking, do you want to take the first step and talk about the main event?
For sure. On paper, I think that it was kind of meant to be this back and forth battle. That's what it kind of was hyped up to be. I didn't think so. I thought Islam was going to be able to kind of nullify Charles, but I think the one big surprising thing was the striking. Because I mean, Islam, I think just after that first hard left that he landed on Charles, I think Charles he kind of just froze in that moment. It seemed like he didn't really want to engage too hard on the feet with Islam, and then obviously when Islam had him on the ground, like there really wasn't any threat on like in that first round. And then going into that second round, I mean, like he just didn't want to engage at all, and like anything he threw, I thought was like really sloppy, and kind of just like a hail mary, like that like flying knee that he ended up getting dropped with. I mean, very sloppy for a guy that looked so good in his past title fights, Poirier, Gaethje, Chandler. Um, just kind of all seemed to go out the window. And I think that's kind of speaks to the level that Islam probably fights at and is. So I think we're in for a long reign with Islam as champion.
Gotta agree. I mean, to me, I've already said to Fight Night Network, my guy, else what I think, but I want to let him talk first. So please take it away.
Yeah, I know we spoke before about those trips and the way that Islam transitioned from the stand-up realm to the ground. And I'll let you talk a bit more about that later. But those car crash events that we see Charles get into in every fight where he may go down, but he gets up, manages to land some strikes. Makhachev seemed too comfortable and too good on the feet to even allow this to happen. You touched on Viking, that flying knee that didn't get near, and then he got tagged again. Those car crash events just didn't work for him. They just weren't there. And also that left hand it was early in the round, both rounds for Makachev stunned him, gave him the advantage, and he just looked so comfortable. It was a pretty flawless performance against one of the best champions, one of the pound for pound best. And as you say, Makachev looks like the man to beat. Volkanovski v Makhachev next. Wow. Just wow.
Yeah, the storylines just get better because honestly, at first I thought Oliveira versus Volkanovski would have been so good, but now after seeing how Makachev looked against Oliveira, like that's truly a pound for pound legacy best. Like, dude, I don't even know how to interpret this because I think honestly, and I said this earlier, I think Islam looked far more impressive than what Habib would have looked like against Charles. This is a very weird hot take, but I think Habib, due to the fact that he goes for the single legs and the double legs very often, he was getting more dangerous positions than Islam did because Islam used the clinch a lot. He put him against the fence and used the trips. So it allowed him to get into the mount and transition from there, to the ground and scramble and just dominate. Honestly, he was dominant. Like you can't say anything that Charles did that caught Islam off guard. Perhaps he landed a knee to the body that was good or an elbow maybe. I don't know. Like honestly, Islam looked so good. He wasn't afraid to go to the ground after he knocked him down with a perfect lead hook. Um, which the striking technique also has to be said is much better from Islam than Habib's was. Like when have you ever seen Habib land a head kick, a roundhouse high kick? Never. So they're different fighters, but at the same time they're just as dominant. It's just different. So I think we're in for another huge title reign, just like you guys are saying. I think Benny Dariush is a guy that we will talk about later, but he looked very good defending the takedown. So perhaps that must be the guy, maybe. Or Volkanovski in Perth. We shall see. I think it's a very hard fight for Volkanovski, but I would love to see an upset. Anyways, let's talk about the co-main event. It was a disastrous one, to say the least. I mean, heartbreaking, honestly. Whatever you think about TJ, you can think whatever you want. We won't judge you. No one will. But like honestly, it's very tough to see a fighter go out like that, especially you knowing that it's probably his last title opportunity and he could have made history. And he just has a lot of heart, the championship mindset. But you know, with Aljo and that injury, it was just not meant to be. So, what do you make of Aljo's performance? It was very dominant, but what do you think of the injury and everything that happened, Mike?
So, I mean, maybe you guys can correct me here if you think a different way, but I mean, if what he said was true about blowing out his shoulder completely, all the way back, and he said April, correct? Why don't you just pull out? Like, I understand that he said, like, oh, like, I didn't want to wait another year. But if you wait another year and you're healthy, then you actually give, like, I would imagine a much better effort than he's able to give, yesterday morning. Um, I mean, I know myself, I would have definitely probably just pulled out, understanding, like, okay, like, I'm not going to beat this guy with one arm. And I mean, despite him actually landing stuff with one arm, which I thought was hilarious, um, you got to respect. I mean, even though he should have pulled out, I respect him a whole hell of a lot more for even just battling through that and putting forth that effort and just not ever quitting on himself, because I think that's such a respectable thing. But I'll drop that question to you guys. I mean, are you guys pulling out, or are you going in there and fighting like he did?
I mean, I'm not going to argue with a man with the UFC Apex hat on, so I don't think that me and TJ Dillashaw are particularly similar. So I would have pulled out that fight before I signed for that fight. So
To me, yeah, I would have pulled out, but he said this, and I agree with him. Like the division's too stacked, so if he pulls out, someone comes in, steals his opportunity, and he may have to fight someone like Petr Yan for that. And then you don't want to fight Petr Yan. Like we'll talk about Petr Yan too. This card's just mental, man. But like, what? Like, yeah, I get it. I get it. You pull out, you do whatever it takes to get to the fight, and maybe it doesn't work. But the fact that he tried is commendable. That's what I have to say, really. I think
it's not
ultimately
like
in the other
just
side,
quickly as well.
yeah.
It's not like it popped out once in April. In the post fight, he said that it was continuous and 20 times is the number he said. Obviously, that could just be like a throwaway. It popped out like 20 times, but it popped out like twice in the fight itself. So, and he couldn't get it back in. He's a savage for trying to go in there, but I mean, realistically, it wasn't the right thing to do. We can say that quite clearly now.
Unfortunate, but at the same time, let's say this: Aljamain Sterling's the bantamweight champion. He has a lot of options. He said it himself. Henry Cejudo is the fight that I would like to see. So this is a question that I pose to you guys: what's the fight you want to see him in next? Because it's a hard one. The division is so stacked that it's a hard one to call.
I think you got to go. I mean, it's just a big question because, like, is Henry really coming back? Like, it's Henry, right? Like, the dude's just joking around, trolling everyone constantly. I mean, that's a big question because Aljo didn't really take any damage. So depending on how fast he wants to fight again, I mean, there's a lot of options that he can go. I think money fight wise, I think that would do absolute numbers just because two high level grapplers and Henry being considered one of the greatest to do it. I think that's going to be such a high level fight, and hopefully none of them blow out their shoulders and continue to fight.
Yep, gotta agree.
I'm going a different path. I'm going the money fight. I'm going Sugar Sean O'Malley after beating Piotr Yan. That's the fight to make. Whatever you think about the decision, as you say, we'll get to it. He beat him. He's number one contender. Suda retired. He can wait. I don't care about him now. We've got a money fight. We've got Sean O'Malley, and we've got the champ, Aljamain Sterling. That's what we need to make next.
Okay, so with that being said, let's get straight in. Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley. I'm gonna say it straight up because I don't want to get hated on. Because I know I will when I post about this on my page, but I just have had so many arguments about this fight already. It got so toxic yesterday in the MMA community after the decision was read. Honestly, like you couldn't say O'Malley looked good because then people would throw fucking tweets at you calling you a casual, a dumbass. So I'm just going to leave that aside. I think Yan won 29-28, yes. But I think it's easy to say that O'Malley took the third round, and whoever disagrees, it's okay. I get that. But the judging criteria, the first thing that it looks at is damage. and O'Malley outlanded him by twice the strikes. He rocked him and he caught him pretty bad. And the takedowns, although Jan was getting them, he wasn't doing much with them. Sean was getting up. So I get the control time, yes, but it's just like the TJ versus Sandhagen fight. If you want to take another route of examples, it was a close fight, and every round was close. I would argue maybe the second one wasn't, but even O'Malley had his moment rocking him with the overhand left. Um, I mean, it was such a good fight. So Sean O'Malley proved he's elite, he's top five. Petr Yan proved that he only loses by split decision or in DQs. So it's always due to something that is out of his control. And that's how good Petr Yan is, because maybe the knee against Aljamain was in his control, let's be honest, but he's a savage. So the man's from Siberia. I'm not putting any doubt on his crazy mind. But what do you guys think? Who do you guys think won? And how do you guys look at Sean O'Malley now after this fight? Because I think many people have mistreated him due to the decision.
I think Sean is just like he was always going to be that person that just gets that immense amount of hate because for whatever reason, fans of mixed martial arts hate confidence and hate self belief for whatever reason. Um, but I mean, you got to look at that fight and think like, and I can even humbly say like I thought that Jan was going to run through O'Malley. Like I thought O'Malley. I mean, I knew O'Malley's elite, but like I didn't think he was at that level just yet. But I mean, that's the most impressive thing. Like you can argue who won that fight, blah blah blah, but like Jan was expected to win that fight. He was expected to steamroll O'Malley, and I think O'Malley, like you said, completely had him like the most danger that Jan has ever seen inside the octagon was from Sean O'Malley, and I think that's one of the most impressive things that honestly, like, it's the most impressive thing from UFC 280. Um, I mean, Sean did a great job, obviously, just like I think staying the course and giving those weird looks to Jan to actually make him open up, which is something that you never ever see. So he had those windows of kind of success where you see like the overhand left, you see like that combo with the knee that cuts Jan open. Like there are those little moments where him just being super super unorthodox just made Jan make a mistake, which is crazy to think. Um, Again, I did think Jan won 29-28, but again, like it's such a close fight. I'm just happy I got to witness it in its true glory. It was one of those fights where I think the last time I felt that kind of nervousness for a fight was Gaethje and Chandler. So it was nice to feel that again and just not understand what the hell was happening and just roll the punches. So I was just happy I got to witness it, honestly. But like you said, he's the number one contender now. It'll be interesting to see if they give him the title fight versus Aljo.
So, Fight Night, you were the one that said this. So, how do you see Sean O'Malley matching up with Aljamain, especially after Aljamain's performance last night? Although, TJ has his shoulder in another dimension, but we shall not talk about that.
That's a hell of a fight because O'Malley can definitely hurt Sterling. But Sterling, I mean, Jan could take down O'Malley multiple times last night. Couldn't keep him down, mind you, but he could take him down. And we saw how good Sterling's grappling is recently. His past few performances, it's somehow got better. So I'm leaning towards the champ because of what we've seen, but it wouldn't surprise me if O'Malley managed to get that one shot in because his boxing last night, that step in right hand was just immense. Beautiful. The way he hurt Jan in that second round. If I can just quickly break down how I saw the fight from the first round, it was close on the feet, very close on the feet. But then Jan got a takedown. Didn't do a lot with it, but had that takedown as well. For me, that gave him the slight edge and gave him that first round. Second round was Jan's quite clearly. But even so, Sean O'Malley almost managed to drop Petr Yan, landed an absolute bomb on the feet, and then got cracked himself. An incredible second round. And then the third for me was O'Malley's round. Despite the number of takedowns, Jan could not keep him there at all. O'Malley on the feet landed the more damaging shots. Now, people always forget about this. It's the damaging shots that count more in our sport. That is how it works. So for me, that third round was O'Malley's, but Jan 29-28, which makes it even stranger, the fact that I scored Jan having the win. That for me, it was one of Sean O'Malley's most impressive performances to date. He looked incredible out there. Just because people didn't like the decision, they're not giving him the respect he deserves. I did not see him going toe-to-toe with Petr Yan like he did. Just a fantastic fight and a great performance.
Yeah, not much else to say. I mean, Sean O'Malley's a star now. It's what he said. This is where stars are created. So congrats, Sean. You're a star. And if you win that bantamweight belt someday, I think we're looking at a superstar champion in the UFC, honestly. So it's good to see this. It's good to have guys like him and Hamzat who can grow the sport exponentially by becoming champions, potentially. So talking about future champions, possibly, Mateusz Gamrot, Benil Dariush. What a fight. Benil was just flawless. I have nothing else to say. Flawless, flawless. I think he should fight Charles next. I think that's the fight to make. What do you guys think? What do you guys make of the performance, and where do you see Gamrot going to?
Yeah, so I mean that Benil Dariush Gamrot fight was probably one of the most impressive performances on the card, and I'm kind of shocked Benil didn't get a performance of the night bonus. Because I thought that next to Sean, I felt like that was the second most impressive that I saw. Obviously, as you guys are well aware, I was pretty critical of Benil Dariush leading up to this one. I didn't think that he was worthy of the title fight, and I said that hey, if you go out here fight Gamrot and you win, then we can start talking about it. And I think with a performance like that, then I almost wouldn't even be mad if he skipped over Volkanovski to fight Islam because I thought that performance was so beautiful. Like, granted, Gamrot had success in that first round, but I mean, once Benil felt what he was going up against, like it was like levels, like just different. It was crazy to witness. I mean, any single like takedown that Gamrot even shot, like Benil was just on it, and the scrambles were beautiful. The defense was beautiful, and then obviously, for me, the fights were on pretty early. I think the main card started at like 11. So I'm just sat in bed, and then I just see Dariush just land a bomb on Gamrot that just absolutely woke me up, and I was like, "This is crazy! Like, what a performance from Benil." It's a shame he didn't get 50 Gs. He definitely deserved it. And honestly, I think he's right up there now. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Obviously, it seems like Volkanovski's the guy, so Dariush doesn't seem like the guy who's going to want to wait. So a lot of fights for him coming down the barrel. I think you have Charles, you have Dustin, you have Michael Chandler. I think any of those three are probably realistically what he's going to take next, even though I now kind of agree. I think he should fight for the title.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I'm with you, but that fight, the result of the fight was one of those run to the group chat kind of moments when your friend's been talking smack about a certain fighter, and then a performance like that. I mean, you could be the biggest Benny hater in the world, and you see that performance, and you're immediately somewhat of a fan. For me, that establishes what I thought we already knew about Dariush. He is such a good fighter. From the scrambles on the bottom, as you say, the first grappling exchange in this fight was just incredible. Both guys rolling over, trying to get the top position, and it really set the tone for how the fight was going to play out. Benny has that unassuming power as well. When he cracks hard. I mean, that fight against Drakkar Klose comes to mind, where he was badly hurt, landed that one bomb and set the internet alight with a new meme template that still gets used. But what a performance. I mean, I don't think many guys thought that someone would do that to Gamrot. I mean, the first round was close. I think probably Gamrot's round. But after that, it was such an intelligent performance. On the feet, looked incredible. And his defensive grappling abilities were just... I think Gamrot got 3 takedowns out of about 18 in the end, something like that. I mean, against a guy that is that good of a grappler in Mateusz Gamrot, as we saw against Sarukian in his last performance, a great fight. And as you say, if it wasn't for Volkanovski, it'd be the title fight guaranteed. The most annoying thing for a fighter must be a champion in the division below that wants to fight for the title. It's got to be the most irritating thing, but Dana doesn't like someone waiting on the side. Benny doesn't want to wait on the side either. But the title fight's there for him. It's got to be, right?
I mean, at least a replacement fighter for it this time, because he
Yeah.
was allegedly going to be the replacement for this one, but we saw how that panned out. I think Volkanovski earned it just by cutting the weight, basically. So, I mean, he didn't just earn it by cutting the weight, because I mean, he beat Max Holloway 3 times, and the guy's pretty much undefeated in the UFC and has looked phenomenal in his last 4, 5 fights. I mean, the Bryan fight to me was, as a guy that saw it live, was the time where I said, this guy, he's something. So honestly, I'm never gonna doubt Volkanovski again, but I'm never going to doubt Islam or Charles Oliveira again, or Benny for that matter. So yeah, these guys just keep on proving us wrong, and it's great to see. Honestly, because Benil, we've always known that he has that jiu-jitsu background, and he's been a world champion in various tournaments, and the guy is very good in the ground. But to defend almost every single takedown from Mateusz Gamrot at the pace that he fights at, that's what surprised me the most. Like, Benil was able to keep up with the pace and even put a pace of his own on the feet, landing some huge knees to the body. I think those were detrimental to Gamrot's like slowing down. And then that overhand left that he landed in the third round and then didn't capitalize on it. That was just flawless. Honestly, Benil looked so good. So the lightweight division, man. Rafael Fisiev's also a guy that no one's talking about, but he's right there. People seem to forget it. I mean, just saying. Anyways, we also have Manon Fiorot versus Caitlin Chookagian. And I think this is a fight that most of us saw it going this way from the beginning. But it's fair to say that Caitlin Chookagian is still probably the best gatekeeper. And this is no disrespect. I said it on the last Brad Pack episode. She's the best gatekeeper in women's MMA, probably in MMA period. She's beating almost like Peryan everyone in the division, but the up and comers, the stars, and this was the same case kind of. But Fiorot was looked at as the obvious winner here. I think she looked very crisp on the feet. I think both women didn't throw much. They didn't similar to Araujo versus Alexa, like they slowed down after the first round, almost like they didn't want to hit each other and just win by points. And this is something I don't want to see. I want to see finishes. I think that's also what Dana and everyone wants to see, right? Like even the fans. And I think that these two girls could have gotten that finish probably, but they just decided to stay at distance. And when you stay at distance with a girl as good as Manon Fiorot on the feet, I think it was obvious that Caitlin Chookagian was going to lose. So what do you guys make of the performance? Do you think Manon Fiorot is ready for the title shot? Or maybe should we see Alexa and Fiorot throw down for that #1 contender and have Valentina fight Kyla Santos instead?
It's going to be interesting, I think, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Tyler Santos is kind of in some legal battles currently at the moment. Um, so I don't know what you're weighing, because I'm guessing that Valentina is going to want to fight pretty darn soon, knowing her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of different options you can weigh in if you're the UFC and where you kind of move the divisions, because I think realistically it should be Tyler Santos. But if that stuff is true, like those rumors, I don't think that she's going to be in the right headspace to rematch Valentina, being that she probably did the best out of anyone in recent history. Like she debatably could have won that fight if that headbutt never happens.
Yeah.
But I think if you're Tyler Santos, you want zero kind of problems going on behind the scenes. So that could be a thing where maybe she holds out a little bit longer and kind of just flies under the radar. But then, do you give it Alexa? Do you give it to Manon? I really don't think Manon's ready for Valentina. I think that she could give her a decent fight, but I just think that I think she does what Manon does, just better. And I'm a big, Manon fan. I just think that she's just the better version of her. So I mean, I can completely understand them fighting for the title, and it makes a lot of sense, and it'd be a really fun matchup to watch. I just think Valentina's better at outpointing people. Um, but Chookagian, I think the interesting thing was I don't think she really wanted to take a risk when overextend against a girl like Manon, because what more can you do if you're Caitlin Chookagian to get a title fight, right? Because obviously, the first fight never went your way, and you're never going to win. But you win 4 or 5 in a row. Like at some point, you just have to be given that title shot again because there's no one else, and she was not getting that. So I think that she knew let me try to outpoint this girl and then win another fight to add to the win streak, and then just force them to let you rematch Valentina. But obviously that didn't happen, so it'll be interesting to see where this division goes.
I'm with you. I think a lot of this next matchup is to do with the time frame of when people are looking to return. But I would favour giving Manon the next title shot. I think she's earned it. I mean, picking anyone over Valentina is a drastic thing to do, so I don't think we'd go that far. But as you say, very big fan. It was a technical fight. I mean, we always like seeing the side kicks and, strikes that aren't thrown quite as much in the sport, and she's a master of that. She did it again, and beating Chikagian is no easy task whatsoever. If we look at some of the people that she has lost to since joining the UFC, I think way back 2016, a split decision over Liz Carmouche. Okay, 2016 makes sense. Then we got a split decision over Jessica Eye in 2018. Perhaps that one hasn't aged quite so well, but another split decision. Then Valentina Shevchenko speaks for itself. Jessica Andrade, another legend of the division, speaks for itself. And now Manon Fiorot as well. So, she's one step below the best, but a very good fighter in her own right. Just doesn't quite have that, finishing instinct that could perhaps get her to where the very top of the division is. But a solid opener to the main card.
I mean, I read a stat the other day, and it's easy to say it like this, but I think Kayleen has fought like 15 fights or more in her professional career that have won the decision, and I don't know how many times she's fought. So yeah, like you say, she doesn't have that pop to her strikes or that finishing instinct that perhaps Manon Fiorot does have, and that's why she was not overextending. But for a fighter that was losing the first 2 rounds, probably, I mean, she could have taken the risk. I don't know. It's whatever, because we're gonna talk about an unexpected finish this time. Talk about the prelims, and I'll let you guys kick it off because one of you was gonna talk about this. So please.
It's hard not to talk about it because it's almost like, I mean, I don't think anyone was really expecting Belal Muhammad, of all people, to finish Sean Brady on the feet like that. Um, as much as the jokes fly around with Belal, that he's like a boring fighter, and no one likes him, and blah blah blah. I mean, what a way to change the narrative! I think. I don't think there's anyone that won more other than Sean O'Malley and Beneil. Like that, the top three is O'Malley, Beneil, and Belal, because Belal can. I mean, everyone laughed at him for saying in the press conference, like, "Oh, I'm going to put him to sleep," and everyone's like, "No, you're going to put us to sleep with another boring performance." And you go out and do that to Sean Brady. I mean, the pressure that he put on him from just the get go was insane. I mean, he showed no, he didn't care at all what Sean Brady was throwing at him. I mean, props to Sean Brady for, I mean, he landed some good left hooks on Belal. I think that's something that people might pick up on, that he might need to just tighten up a little bit, because I mean, those were landing pretty well for Sean from basically the start of the fight to when he got finished. But I mean, Belal just went through the fire and just landed that bomb of a right hand right on Sean's chin. And after that, I mean, it was all over from there. But I mean, what a way to end the prelims, and what a way to really solidify yourself as one of the most elite in that division after getting so much hate from the MMA community.
Yeah. Can I just quickly ask as well, your opinions on the stoppage?
It was late. I mean, like it's tough because I mean, Sean obviously wasn't doing anything, wasn't throwing anything back. It was just full shelled up. At the time, I thought maybe you could have let him go just a little bit extra to see if there was anything else. Because I mean, there was like 13 seconds left in the round, I think, when it stopped, like somewhere around there. I mean, if it wasn't finished, I'd get it. But if it is finished, I also get it, because there was nothing coming back at Belal, and there was no. It was just him shelling up and just kind of rolling with the punches and on wobbly legs.
I agree. I personally thought it was a good stoppage, and I saw all the posts online. I saw it all 10 seconds left. That doesn't matter. There could be 1 second left. If you've just been hit clean with 20 unanswered strikes, for me, that counts as a stoppage. But I know that Poet didn't quite see it that way at all.
No, I did not. No, man, because look, this is my point of view, right? Like, you're an undefeated fighter. You're in the biggest fight of your life. You're fighting for the top 5 in your division. There's 14 seconds left on the clock, and the guy is pouring rain on you with strikes. Yes, I get that. Like, he's landing, but not all the shots are actually landing. Like, if you look at that sequence once again, it's like a fourth of the shots that Belal was throwing were landing. And yes, he did rock Brady, but at no point did Brady look like he was going to go out cold, in my opinion. And I think for that big of a fight for Sean Brady, he could have been allowed to fight a bit longer, perhaps that third round. This is MMA. You never know what's going to happen. You know, we've seen it time and time again. Pat Barry, Jake Congo is probably the best example of you never fucking know what's going to happen, although that's heavyweights. But like Brady against Jake Matthews was also pretty much getting pieced up on the feet until the third round where he caught that mounted guillotine. Um, I don't know. I think for me, more than Bilal looking impressive, which he really did, it's also people were hyping Sean Brady up to be this guy that he was never like that guy. You know, against Michael Chiesa, yes, he won. And yes, he was a 14th and beat the number 6, but it was a very close fight too, and he didn't look that great on the feet. Chiesa actually took him to some deep waters in the third round. So yes, I thought Sean Brady was going to win because I thought what I didn't see is Bilal having this cardio and this pace. It was incredible, honestly. Like, credit to Bilal, but I also do think that this was not a step up in competition from Vicente Luque, for example. You know, I think Vicente probably beats Sean Brady. Um, yeah, that's what I think. Honestly, that's just my opinion. But about the stoppage, I do think that many other fighters you wouldn't have stopped it for. Honestly, like if it was Hamzat Chimaev on that other side, I don't think they would have stopped that fight because you know that if Hamzat lands one uppercut, you could be out. You know, I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I see it both ways. I completely understand where, if you're Sean Brady, you probably want to go out in your shield in that moment just because you are undefeated. Um, did you think he had won the first round?
No, I thought he was going to lose anyways. That's
Yeah.
being honest because he was losing the whole fight. Yes, but at the same time, let him have his moment. You know, many people also thought Petr Yan was beating Sean O'Malley pretty
Yeah.
handily in the first two rounds, and then he came out in the third after getting pretty cracked in the second round.
Yeah.
It's incredible in the third. So I just don't know, man. Like, you can say the same thing about Volkanovski versus Ortega, and then Brian looked the best in the fifth round. So it's MMA. It's a sport where you never know what's going to happen. And I feel as
Yeah.
if they took Sean Brady's opportunity to perhaps have his moment. We'll never know though, because Bilal was flawlessly dominating him, and I'm not taking anything away from him. But but I do honestly believe, and this is not no disrespect, I think Bilal against Chimaev, against guys like Gilbert Burns, against guys like Colby Covington, against guys like Leon, again, would be in for a very rough time. I wouldn't throw him straight into a title shot right now, especially with guys like Hamzat going up and, you know, Shotcut fighting Geoff Neal in January, something we could probably talk about. But yeah, that division is not for the wicked. It's not for the weak-minded either. Huh? It's a great division. Anyways, fight night. You got to talk about your prelim fight because it was also a very, very good performance.
Yeah, I mean, there were loads of names that we could pick from, but I'm going to go with the fight of the prelims for me, and especially the first round in this fight was unbelievable. Nikita Krylov against Volkan Oezdemir. I mean, the way that fight opened up, there was no way that both guys would be able to keep that up throughout the whole 50. Oezdemir cracking Krylov early. He just looked a bit, lackadaisical, like he was coming into the fight, just, ready to warm up, get going, then try and find his finishing shots. Wasn't allowed to do that at all. Got cracked early, got hurt. But then the momentum changed with a big shot, managed to put the pressure on, almost get the finish. I'm not quite sure how that fight wasn't stopped. The 12.5-minute period or so where Krylov was really putting the pace on. A fantastic fight, and it went the way that I thought it might. I didn't see Oezdemir having the success that he did early. I mean, incredible against a guy like Krylov, who is so powerful, has the potential to put anyone's lights out. A very fun fight, and it'll be interesting to see what's next for Krylov at the top of the division. His last performance, a couple of performances ago against Paul Craig as well, his most recent loss, he got Paul Craig. There's no other way to say it. He was dominating that fight. Then he goes, puts out Gustafsson. Think what you want about that. And then he's just battered Uzdemir, to be quite frank about it. He's elite. He is at this stage of his career, especially. I want him to, I'd tune into any of the top guys. A fun fighter, a really fun fighter.
Yeah, I'm gonna pose this question. Would you like to see him against a guy like Thiago Santos or maybe Dominic Reyes if you could try and span? I think Krylov is on that level because I've also seen him in the UFC for a long time. I think one of the best performances that he had too was Johnny Walker at the time. People forget about that one. And also when he fought Magomed Ankalaev, he looked very good. It's just Ankalaev's very good too, but Krylov took him to a close decision. Krylov is a very good fighter. So who would you like to see him against next? Because the division, that one, it's also a division that is currently all booked up. So
yeah, just quickly on Thiago Santos signed for PFL though. So, but the guys at the top, throw him with anyone. Viking, who do you think?
It's kind of tough because I mean, for me, like Krylov's always that guy that kind of hovers in that kind of bottom section from like 7 to 15, but he's never found that rhythm to crack just up into that top five. He kind of meets that maker in a sense, like it was for Ankalaev. Like I think you win a fight like that, then you're fighting the Rakic's, the Blachowicz, those kind of caliber of fighters. But one loss, and then maybe you lose to Paul Craig in the fashion you do. It's like there's these little setbacks that he has that kind of prevents him, I feel like, from ever getting that momentum to really crack into the elite of the division. But that being said, I think it's very capable. It just needs the right matchup. And maybe one that he hasn't fought already. It's just tough because I mean all these fights are booked up. All these guys are booked up, so it's super kind of one-off-ish where it's gonna really be who wins, who loses. But I think one guy that you really look at could potentially be the guy is Anthony Smith. Um, Granted, if he wants to come back and fight, I think he's ranked 5, perhaps 6, 5 or 6. I think it's a perfect fight for him at this moment. Give him someone where he's able to kind of build that momentum still, while also beating and fighting one of the best in the division.
pretty good shout, to be honest. I was also thinking Alexander Rakic when he comes back, but we don't know how he's gonna look or when he's gonna come back. So that's a rough one. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about my prelim fight. It was Muhammad Mokaev versus Malcolm Gordon, and I have to say this, Muhammad, come on, man! Like, why are you throwing spinning, crazy kicks instead of going for the takedown? I get that you're trying to put on a show, but it looks like you're underestimating your opponents. Although, even with him underestimating them, he's dominating them, and he's 22, and people keep forgetting that. The guy just wants to put on a show. He even said it himself in the post-fight interview. Like, sorry guys, I'm underestimating my opponents. I'm going to take them more seriously. I want to fight Brandon Royval, which I think is a very, very tough fight at this stage for him if Malcolm Gordon could take his back. But yeah, Muhammad Mokaev still looked very dominant. His takedowns, his wrestling, his striking even. The man's 22, one of the biggest prospects in MMA. So this is the question that I want to pose. Who would you match him up with? Because I think Brandon Royval is just too high up there, honestly, right now.
I think you give him a shot at a ranked opponent at this point, just because why not? I would say anywhere from 13 to 15. I think those guys are like, I think it's like Tagi or Ulan Bekov could be a good one. Jeff Molina even could be a good matchup. So I think you do at this point. I mean, like you said, like he's showboating and still being in zero danger ever. So I think it's time just give him someone in the top 15. He's definitely deserved it. And let him just prove himself. I mean, like you said, 22, the kid's ridiculously good. Like he's outpowering everyone on that roster he's fought, and it's not even close. For a kid who's 22 years old, he is ridiculously strong. Um, and like Royval's too high, but I respect that he wants to go right up to the top because I'm sure that he definitely can hang with those guys. But build it up slowly. I say you give him 15 to 14, that kind of range.
Fight night, you're the British guy, so Let us know.
Yeah, you guys know how high I've been on this guy since before he was signed to the UFC. Just a great fighter at 22. And I think the reason that he wants that Royval fight more than wanting to fight him already is that he wants to be the youngest ever UFC champion. He's been vocal about it. And, a win over Royval would put him in line for the next shot at the title. With the hype that he's on, I don't think there's too much debate over the fact that that is the way they'd go. There's been some talk about Tim Elliott. Also, Makhachev versus Tim. I don't mind that. Throw him in. But if you go a bit further up the rankings against guys like Al-Bazi, then you get Alex Perez, Royval, Askarov. That's not what I want to see yet. One more fight in against a guy who is legit, who is very fundamentally sound, and we'll see where it goes. Because as you say, Malcolm Gordon, who again looked good despite losing, took his back twice. So one more fight before the very elite of the division.
I would like to see him against Sumo Derji or Matt Schnell. I think that would be the one that I would make. But that was the prelims. That was the recap of UFC 280. Just a brief overview on the other fights. Caio Borralho won. Very good performance. I mean, he didn't look the best, but Moralov's a very good fighter. Let's not forget about this. Caio still on the rise. Still on the rise. Lena Landsberg versus Carl Rosa. Carl Rosa looked pretty good, actually. I didn't expect her to go for takedowns. I expected the complete opposite. Lena landed a very good, I think it was a right hand at the beginning of the fight, and that kind of spelled the end of her whole output. Like that was it. That was all she did throughout the fight. But it was a very good right hand. And to be honest, like the rest of the card has some other fights that we didn't talk about, but Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus Omar Gachiev, pretty good fight. Armin Petrosyan dominating over AJ Dobson. So
Abubakar Nurmagomedov, as well as winning that fight, had a bit of a tussle with none other than Hamzat Chimaev backstage while Islam was getting crowned. So 2-0 in one night.
2-0, I guess. And you could also say Hasbulla is undefeated with the fighters that he roots for, because every time he roots for a fighter, they seem to win. It's crazy. I mean, both times he's been in the cage with Islam has looked incredible. So Hasbulla, you're the king, bro.
If you're rooting for a Russian wrestler, you're on for a good start anyway. I mean,
yeah. I mean, yeah, we gotta give credit to Hasbulla. I just looked at the UFC kit store, online, and saw that Hasbulla has his own fighter kits. Just crazy to me how MMA has gone to this. But anyways, this card was crazy. We're 20 events away from UFC 300. That's also crazy. And yeah, UFC 281. Yeah, UFC 281, November 12th. And we're also going to talk Kattar versus Allen shortly for you guys. So anyways, we're going to try to put more content out. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And any last words from you guys?
Fantastic fights. Always a pleasure waking up at 7 a.m. to watch MMA.
Always a pleasure not needing to stay up until 7 a.m. to watch MMA.
To me, they started at 10 a.m., so to me it was okay. I mean, it is what it is, This card deserved it. I would have woken up at any time to watch these fights, honestly. Like, if you told me Oliver versus Makhachev was at, 4 a.m., I would have been like, okay. Anyways, it was worth it.
On earlier than usual.
It was worth it, man. This card was good. I think the main event delivered above expectations, although many people were expecting a back and forth. No one expected it to go this way. So it was historic. That's how I would define it in one word: historic. And yeah, see you next time for Kattar versus Allen. See you guys.